out here in a rhubarb patch at an undisclosed location, neighboring where I spend much of my time, simply because there is a relationship established between both sides of the fence or of the relations, and because of that, there is an allowance of permissions of use. There is an allowance for permissions of use. Within a usufructuary system, there are three elements that constitute an imperfect or a perfect usufruct. Those criteria are usus and the ability to use someone else's property for your own benefit. There is fructus, which is the ability to profit off of the use of someone else's property. And then there is abusus, which is where the perfect usufruct turns into the imperfect usufruct, and we get fruct left, right, and center, not to mention from down below. So we're going to actually be talking about legal piratism, which is something that if you've never heard the term before, now you'll remember it forever because of the mixed war we're in between the public and private. And that term is privateerism. Privateerism is where private citizens would take on the letter of marque or letter of commission, the souverain or the sovereign of their area. Oh, tickling my breast. Not tickling at all, it was quite itchy. It's inappropriate to itch my breast in front of others, and especially in such a public way. So pardon me for instinctually reaching to do the very thing that I wanted to before civil politeness made it so that I felt a different way than relieved because of that impulse that I followed through on temporarily. Before then, I stopped because of its inappropriate nature. And yet, how inappropriate was it really? It could be taken inappropriately, most certainly. But it is simply to say that if we go back to the usufructuary system, we will have more than our breasts tickled by the debts that we accrue between those who know and those who don't. I actually believe that's part of the allegory behind the biblical manger story of Jesus' birth. Jesus being an I shy, a je suis en français, and his parents not being part of the IN Act or the Bar Associations Act that regulates barristers and legal professionals. They weren't allowed in because they weren't members of the inn or the four courts. So instead, they had to go into a manger where the animal class is managed by the shepherd and the keepers. And then je suis en français, I am, that became the character he was referred to as, who likely did do profound things while he lived. The problem is that once the title was issued to him and his identity changed, converted through the acquisition of a new status, which was now, or a new name, which was Jesus instead of Yahweh or the four capital letters that are said to make up the true king's name. And yet, who is the true king? Did you know about the 7 kingdoms that preceded Rome? The establishment of the Roman Republic that became an empire and then transitioned into nationalism and statism and all of the isms that make mental constructs physical within the corporate reality where we orate on behalf of the corpse, that we accrue the karma for when we do something to harm another because of our position. Nuremberg trials have nothing on the soul. Well, they have a lot on the soul. The soul of the man or woman that was holding the position, calling the shots to do harm to others and accrue debts. But the living register of the Akashic records is ultimately what is keeping score, and you want to know what's going on in that game because it is your past, present, and future simultaneously coexisting within the same shared space of an energetic database, a library of sorts with a book with your name on it. And in that book are all of the ways that your soul has gained lessons, insights, experiences. Those are tracked, as are ways that you have left parts of yourself, fragmented parts of yourself in not now moments of the past or future that are not here where we actually are able to feel it, to heal it, and let it go. So, we are doing a tremendous amount by unpacking the story of Jesus and saying sui juris, S-U-I juris, is different from je suis juris, which would mean I am right or I am of law, I am of right. If the rights are origin, well then don't we have to write it? Why wouldn't we command the pen to write the story of origin for myself when writing the story? We tell when we are in the first person in our story that you would use that same pronoun when you were telling your story and referring to your story and you as me and mine. Possession is an article, is in the articles. Possession in language is in the articles. That's the and an and other ways that you say whether it is general or specific. And specifics matter because once something is specified, it can be named and then classified or categorized. And those things within an imperial hierarchical structure that is of a matrix trellis structure in nature. Well, this is a whole lot. Shall we carry on? Do you want to know more? This is what the real story of Rome is about, and I've been tracking this story since November 2022, though got introduced to it earlier through Article 61 of the 1215 Magna Carta and the lawful movement to call for redress in 2020. And then when I got the summons for dealing or speaking at a rally and dealt with it via lawful notice to not drop a knee, to be knighted and have my status changed to something other than I am as a woman who would pay a high price if I allowed myself to be made an example of, as was always the strategy for the Fabian Society, and I want to say the CCP, and there's a part of me that is afraid to do so because of the amount of power that group or organization have and their totalitarian, animal-minded way of not being able to say, okay, this doesn't feel right in my heart or my gut, so I cannot go any further even though you want me to. A soldier can't say that. A member of an army cannot say that to the commander. Soldiers, though, means that you have relegated yourself to an agent position, and the agent is on the same level as the legal person, substitute person, statutory person, executor or exchequer, that is ultimately the one who is going to pay for the passage, for safe passage through the territory of Hyro's prism that we haven't realized we're already in. It's an overlay on what this reality actually is, but it matters, and I look forward to breaking it down for you. So I look forward to hearing what this brings up in you and for you and what you want to do with it. Oh, I think that's a cattle shipping vehicle. So will we be chattel or cattle that is transported by someone in an agent position within an agency that dictates where we get to go? Or will we say no? That is not how this is going. This is how it's going, and we write it so that we can write it. And this is where we see that what we write become rights that we can stand on as lawful claims, that we take names of men or women who believe they have a superior claim to what we have already claimed. And if not, they cannot say that I don't have the rights that I've claimed if I've gave them notice and a lawful time frame and they've still not responded. That's a response in and of itself, according to the games of war. The game of war and the love of power and money are what we're dealing with here. And what's crazy is how the Mental Health Act and maids are presently being used to groom our normalization of it, of those systems, that I think we need to look at deeper. And I'm not the only one, and I know that, and so do you. And if you don't, I'd say crawl out from under your rock, but the rock would be the See of Peter within the cult of Rome that is still reigning just under the flag, the box of flags that are carried by pirates to get the trust of those who might see one flag and believe it to be friends versus another that could be deemed foe. So there's a lot to discuss and there's a lot to see, but for today, just leave with me the comment that you take away and want to give others who want to hear what you have to say. 1313, have a good day. Whee!